So, I think the way Dying Light structures its side quests are heavily borrowed from the Legend of Zelda games. Hear me out on this. So, a lot of us are still waiting for any update on Dying Light 2, and rumors are starting to circulate that the game has been put on an indefinite hiatus. But I would recommend you go check out Oni Zombie's videos on everything that we know about Dying Light 2 so far. It really does a good job to dispel any of the fake news surrounding the game. And please go subscribe to his channel for the most up-to-date news on Dying Light 2. In the meantime, let me ask you a question. How many of you completely overlooked the first game upon its initial release? And honestly, I don't blame you. I didn't get this game until the Steam Summer Sale of 2017. That was nearly 2.5 years after the game's initial release. It was early on in a new console generation, and most developers were releasing titles that were sequels to already well-established franchises. By the time January of 2015 rolled around, you probably already had a big back catalog of games that you were playing from the third quarter of 2014. We had already had a new Assassin's Creed, a new Far Cry, a new Dragon Age, Warner Brothers had just released Shadow of Mordor, and Bungie had just released Destiny. So if one thing was for sure, it was that open worlds was the way of the future. But when it came down to it, did you really want to play another zombie-based FPS set in an open world from a developer that was only really known for another zombie-based FPS game? And this was at a point where co-op-based zombie onslaught FPS games were starting to feel a bit fatigued. So I don't blame you if you initially dismissed it. So maybe you got it on sale and it fell in your back catalog. Maybe a friend told you you had to get it, or maybe you saw a streamer playing it, but somehow you ended up in the world of Dying Light, and holy crap is that gameplay solid. This came at a time when other developers were hyping the bejesus out of games with trailers that were really just a shoddy representation of the final product, and yet this game was the only one that owned up in any way to what it promised. It's an RPG in an FPS body with a super polished free-running parkour system. So, after about half an hour or so of tutorials, you get to set out in a huge open world that you can freely explore from end to end, and you find that this game is actually challenging. Wow. On top of that, it has a perfect drop-in, drop-out co-op system, and yet is still completely enjoyable as a single-player experience. Like I mentioned, this game came out at a time when so many developers were focused on making open-world games, and something that became obvious rather quickly was that these games would get super grindy and super repetitive very quickly. After extended periods of farming skills and running endless fetch quests, you were just dying to complete the central storyline and say that you finished this game in some capacity. Dying Light is one of the only games that manages to flip that. Most people agree that the central storyline to Dying Light is somewhat mundane. It's fun, it has its moments, it's nothing you haven't seen before, but it certainly suffices as your standard adventure game. However, if you really want to see Dying Light's story and world building shine, then you have to complete all the side quests. Now, I can tell you that the funnest moments that you'll have in Dying Light will probably come from completing the many side quest missions. And there's something really interesting in how Dying Light structures its side quests that seems to be lost on a lot of today's modern adventure games. In fact, if I were to draw a direct line of comparison as to how Dying Light structures its side quests, it would have to be the Legend of Zelda series. Now, I'm not going to focus on the minute aesthetic similarities such as treasure chest style crates and use of a primary vehicle to traverse large areas. Rather, I'm just going to focus on the side quests, and particularly how they're written. It's different from your regular RPG games like the Elder Scrolls series. There aren't multiple choices or extensive amounts of dialogue options. The quests are very linear, but they often require a degree of platforming skills due to the parkour system or even some puzzle-solving abilities. Now, there are a lot of other small errand quests and small challenges that help to pad out the playtime of the game, but a lot of these are more fun to do or are directed towards the co-op features of the game. The side quests are a separate category and consist of their own self-contained stories that happen within the world of Dying Light. After you start to complete a few of the side quests, you'll probably notice that they just hit differently than a lot of other games out there. But why is that? One of the reasons is that the Dying Light writers never miss an opportunity to insert new, fun, interesting characters, all with their own motives and quirks, into each side quest storyline. And this is all throughout the game. Take even a small side quest in which it's simply a time challenge to kill as many zombies as possible within a certain time limit. It's given to you by this guy who says he's an indie film producer who's trying to get footage of real blood and gore for his own personal horror films.
Crane? You're Crane, right? Kyle Crane?
Yeah?
Erwin Snowberg, movie director. I make these zombie annihilation movie series. Yeah, you've probably seen them.
No.
Yeah, they're thought-provoking meditations about people very much like yourself who have to kill buttloads of zombies for various reasons. The details really aren't important. What is important is production cost. Makeup is a major factor. I'm talking head rot, arms falling off, guts hanging out. And when you blow them apart with guns, those squibs cost like crazy.
So you've come to Haran.
It's a tragedy, of course, but there's a fortune in special effects shambling through the streets, just waiting to have their heads blown off for my next movie, Zombie Annihilation 4, Dying Lunch. All I need is a gun nut who can drop in spectacular numbers, and I am told you are just such a man.
And this is just one little instance of writing that gives a small time challenge a morbid and funny subplot to keep you going. While there are more elaborate side quests which involve reoccurring characters who continually give you new missions as you proceed throughout the game, such as the Tolga and Fatim quest, in which two brothers, Tolga and Fatim, who are engineers, are constantly coming up with cartoonish Wile E. Coyote inventions to try and escape Haram. And they require your assistance in collecting parts for these inventions, all the while insulting your intelligence as you go.
Hey boys, what are we into this time?
Do you understand what a battery is?
Tolga, you're overwhelming him. Inside the engine compartment of a bus is a heavy rectangle.
I know what a battery is.
You'll run into them multiple times in the main game, as well as the following expansion storyline. Also, real quick, spoilers. If you don't want them, just skip ahead 10 seconds, but if you're a writer for Dying Light, please stick around. Please find some way to include Tolga and Fatim in Dying Light 2. I know the game takes place 15 years later, and it looks like they died in the following, but come on, these guys were hilarious. A lot of side quests, such as the Tolga and Fatim quests, take a more comedic dark humor overtone. This breaks away from the more serious context of the game and its central storyline, while other quests can be more sympathetic and will take the time to show the human side of the characters who are trapped throughout Haran. Now, take the daycare quest for example. In this quest, you're searching for a gunsmith named Rupert, who is currently stuck watching over a group of kids at a daycare while he waits for his wife to return. All the while, he's been acting the role of a wizard for the children.
I'm Crane. I was looking for Rupert.
No, you weren't. You were looking for a gunsmith who happens to be named Rupert.
Fair enough.
But I'm waiting for my wife Jasmine to come back. Until she's here, I can't leave.
Has she been gone long?
No, not long. So it'll probably be a while before she returns.
And what about these kids? Are their parents
Dead, I hope. Every day I'm terrified that one of them is going to look out the window and see their mother or father shambling down the street. I don't know what I'm going to do when that happens.
What have you told them?
Half-truths. That a dark magic has taken over the city, but that I'm a good wizard who can protect them. It's the sort of game that doesn't end. Jasmine is better at this sort of thing. Hell, I'm a gunsmith. What am I doing playing this magical nonsense?
You want to seek him out for some new weapon modifications. That's the in-game item reward. But of course, you're gonna get roped into a series of tasks revolving around his own needs. First, you're gonna need to find insulin for one of the sick children. Next, you need to retrieve a toy for another kid, and in the process you find out that Rupert's wife turned some time ago and that he locked her in the basement, unable to bring himself to do anything about it. You agree to do the difficult task for Rupert, and he's thankful to you.
Able to help her?
She has peace now.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the kids say they've been seeing a large zombie outside in the courtyard, which they've been calling the Troll.
What troll?
There's a giant troll down in the parking lot. He makes lots of very scary noises, so it's hard to sleep.
Oh, well, that's no good. Maybe I'd better chase him away. And we can't have trolls in the parking lot, can we?
No, sir.
You agree to take care of the task, and...
Alright, we're all clear out here.
Crane, that wasn't the troll.
Wait, what?
That's the troll.
Of course it is. Alright, scratch one troll.
Crane, this is Rupert. You're all right?
Yeah, but kids are a lot more work than I realized.
That's the truth.
This quest is more sympathetic and lighthearted with some dark humor overtones. You see, that's what Dying Light has to offer, which other games have been failing to do. And that's delivering an emotional reward instead of just a reward of new skill points or items to be used in the game. And that's where I bring in my Legend of Zelda comparison. Dying Light is always presenting you with tasks given to you by an array of diverse characters who are always requesting things that can seem either mundane or bizarre, but always show an intrinsic human emotion. And as such, there is always an emotional reward to go along with the reward of new items and skills. And from a gameplay perspective, that might seem somewhat arbitrary, as gaining new items and skills within a game is designed to make you want to keep playing. So what good is an emotional reward? But I would say that after completing just a few of these, you'll probably be dead set on finding every single one that's spewed throughout the open world. As a single-player experience, the side quests easily take Dying Light from being a 20 to 30 hour long game to a 70-hour or longer game that doesn't feel boring in the slightest. And that's really what I enjoyed most about Dying Light, was its overall charming method of world building through the side quests. And this is something that I really hope transcends into the world of Dying Light 2. And it's the main reason that that title is the most anticipated game that I'm looking forward to right now. But if you have yet to play the first one, it's still not too late. Like I said, this game is perfectly enjoyable as a single-player experience. There are still a lot of people who play it online, and if you can find even just one friend who also has a copy, it's really one of the best buddy games out there. So consider giving it a spin. In the meantime, you might want to also consider subscribing to this channel and hitting the bell icon to receive a notification for whenever I post a new video. It won't immunize you from getting infected and turning into a zombie, but it'll sure make me happy.